Hello, dear viewers. Welcome to the 10th episode of the series, The Ledger. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single episode of this series in which the victims are cursed and turned into animals. You can also support us by liking the video and leaving your lovely comments. Enjoy the show.
Cowardice, dear reader, is the most patient of all the flaws I collect. Greed announces itself. Cruelty leaves fingerprints, but the runner simply isn't there. No scene, no scandal, only a closed door and a phone ringing in an empty room. I have written tyrants who destroyed what they touched. Tonight, I write a gentler kind of ruin, a woman who destroyed things simply by never arriving. Watch her there in the gray light before dawn, packing a bag while her phone glows with a name she cannot face. The screen says, "Sister," the suitcase says goodbye. This is entry number 10. Her name was Nina Hart, and she was 25 years old. And she had never once in her life been present for the hard part. Not for funerals, not for apologies, not for the call that came last night, her little sister, frightened, asking her to be there for the surgery in the morning. Nina was not wicked, you understand. Wicked would have required staying in the room. She was simply, reliably, catastrophically elsewhere. And so, when she opened her front door with a packed bag on her shoulder and a train ticket in her heart, she found me waiting on her doormat, placed neatly centered. I do like to make a good first impression. She did something then that none of my entries, not the thief, not the tyrant, not the queen of ornaments, had ever done before. She picked me up with 2 fingers, the way one holds something that might bite, and she threw me away, into the trash can by her building's steps, on top of the coffee grounds and yesterday's mail. I confess, dear reader, I was delighted. Centuries of being feared, stolen, gift-wrapped, and at last, discarded like a takeout menu. She wiped her fingers on her jeans and walked to the bus stop. She felt lighter already. They always do right before. She sat down on the bus stop bench to wait, her bag on her lap, her conscience in the trash, and then she turned her head. There I was, sitting upright on the other end of her bench, patient as a fellow passenger, my runes glowing faintly in the sunrise. Understand this about me, dear reader, because Nina was about to spend a whole day failing to, I do not chase. Chasing is undignified and entirely unnecessary. I simply arrived first. Wherever she was going, I had already bought a ticket. She fled to the Grand train station, and for a little while the Great Hall soothed her. The huge clock, the departure board rattling through its destinations, the beautiful mathematics of leaving. Nina knew stations the way other people know their homes. She had outrun a funeral through this hall once, and 2 apologies, and 1 engagement. She bought her ticket, took her bench, held her bag on her lap like a shield. And from the bag's half-open zipper, dear reader, a thin golden light was already seeping. She had thrown me away. It is true, but she had packed so hastily, and I am very good at luggage. She unzipped the bag to check, and there I lay, open on top of her folded clothes, writing. She scrambled back along the bench and could only watch from its far end as my golden ink crossed the parchment, unhurried, in full morning light. Nina, and beside her name, my brush drew her true portrait, a small crouching rabbit, ears flat, mid-tremble, forever about to bolt. She stared at that little drawing for a long moment. I believe, dear reader, it was the first time in her life that Nina Hart had ever been on time for anything. And then, of course, she ran, from her own luggage. She strode away fast across the marble, arms stiff, breath coming quick and shallow, looking back over her shoulder at the abandoned bag glowing gently on the bench. Her clothes, her wallet, her whole packed life left behind between one heartbeat and the next. That was the moment her sentence truly began, though she did not know it yet because her heart did not slow down when she reached the far side of the hall. It kept drumming. Faster, faster than fear, faster than anything human has reason to beat. A prey animal's heart, dear reader, installed one size too early. The station turned on her next. Every sound in that great stone hall arrived suddenly at 10 times its size, the departure board clattering like an avalanche, a rolling suitcase like thunder, pigeons detonating into flight, a stranger's heels like gunshots on the marble. She ended up crouched against a pillar with her hands clamped over her ears, shaking, while ordinary morning noise crashed over her in waves. This is what the world sounds like to a rabbit, dear reader. Everything is a warning, everything is incoming. She had spent her life refusing to listen. Now she would hear absolutely everything. Then came the small change, the almost funny one, and I recorded precisely because of how small it was. Her nose began to twitch, quick, delicate little pulses, entirely beyond her control, tasting the air for dangers she had no name for. Engine oil, cold iron, a stranger's dog 2 platforms away. She touched a fingertip to it, bewildered, and it went on twitching under her finger like a second heartbeat. There is always one change my entries can't take seriously until it refuses to stop. Hers had arrived, it would not stop again. Her train came the 7:40, the escape she had chosen. Doors open, 1 step and gone. And as she gathered herself to board it, the horn sounded. That is all a train horn, the most ordinary sound in any station. Her new body heard a predator's bellow, and it took her she was 3 steps back and twisting away before her mind could object. Ticket flying from her hand, and by the time she mastered her own legs, the doors had sealed and the platform was empty. Savor the shape of this, dear reader. As I did, Nina Hart, the great escaper, missed her own escape because she flinched. The instinct she had lived by her whole life finally, formally, took over the wheel. On the empty platform, her phone rang again. Sister Hart, glowing green, the answer button 1 small movement away. Her thumb hovered over it closer than it had come in years, and a tear landed on the glass beside it. Look at her there, dear reader, a woman with a racing heart and a twitching nose and nowhere left to run, 1 millimeter from finally being brave. The surgery was in 2 hours. 1 press, 1 word, that is all courage has ever cost. The screen went dark on its own. Even now, I do not know whether she declined the call or simply waited it out. Neither does she. Precisely that, is why my ink chose a rabbit. What happened next? Half the city saw. Nina began to run, truly run, and her borrowed body showed her what it was for. She overtook a bus. She crossed intersections in 2 bounds, hair streaming, sneakers barely touching the pavement, passengers pressing their faces to windows in disbelief. For 1 impossible mile, dear reader, she was magnificent, the fastest thing on the street, the purest runner alive. I gave her that hour deliberately. I wanted her to feel it. This is what you have been practicing for your whole life. Running was never her punishment. Running was her portrait, finished. The speed spent itself in a brick alley where she finally slowed, leaned against the wall, and looked down. Her sneakers had split open at the toes. What pushed through the torn canvas was long and fur-dusted, and wrong feet built for fleeing, bursting out of shoes built for a woman who only ever walked away. She stood very still in the strip of late sun, breathing hard, staring at them. There is a particular silence when an entry stops, explaining things to herself. Hers began in that alley, and it did not lift again. By dusk, she stood under a buzzing neon sign, O Motel, vacancy, with both hands pressed flat to the top of her head, and beneath her palms she could feel them rising. 2 long, soft, snow-white ears pushing up through her light brown hair, tall and unmistakable in the red and blue glow. Ears made for a lifetime of listening for danger. She had ignored 1 phone call too many, dear reader. Now she would spend forever hearing everything except a voice saying her name in an empty apartment across the city, asking why her sister wasn't there. That night, behind a rented door, the account came due in full. She barricaded herself in a wooden chair jammed under the door handle, with all her weight behind it. Curtains drawn, 1 amber lamp against the dark, as if the thing to be kept out were on the other side of the door. Her long white ears swiveled back toward every footstep in the corridor, every cough, every car in the lot. A rabbit's first instinct is to secure the burrow, and she obeyed it beautifully. But you know better by now, dear reader. The only thing transforming in that room was already inside, wearing her blouse, checking the lock twice. She sat on the edge of the bed under the amber lamp, hands limp on her knees, and gasped. And the gasp showed everything. 2 oversized front teeth, white and absurd, and hers. Whiskers fanning from her cheeks. The long ears drooping low with shame over her hair. This is the hour I record most carefully in every entry. Not the fear, but the inventory. The moment they sit very still and count what is left. Nina counted. The number was smaller than it had been at breakfast, and it was getting smaller by the minute. She held both arms out in front of her, palms down, steady as she could make them, and watched the white come in. Soft, snow-bright fur, sweeping up from her wrists like frost crossing a window, her fingers shortening beneath it, even as she counted them. Still 5, still 5. Still she stopped counting, dear reader. Somewhere in that small amber-lit room, watching her own hands stop being hands, Nina Hart finally stopped negotiating. The last thing she had ever run was out of. And on the nightstand, I need not tell you by now, there I lay. Open, glowing, comfortable. She had thrown me in a trash can at sunrise, and I had crossed the city without taking a single step, because I was never behind her, dear reader. I was always at the destination. She knelt at the edge of the bed and looked at me for a long time, white-furred hands in her lap, too tired to be afraid. It is the closest any entry has ever come to an apology. I recorded it as one. It changed nothing, but I recorded it as one. The tale arrived almost gently, a small round puff of white popping free through the seat of her jeans. Ridiculous, harmless, final. She twisted around on the bed to see it, propped on one furred hand, ears flat along her back, and I watched the last resistance leave her with something very like a laugh that had nowhere to go. Of all the changes, dear reader, the small ones land hardest. A serpent's coils are mythology. A cottontail is just true. Her face went last, as faces do in my book. White fur closed over her cheeks and brow. The little pink nose settled into its endless twitching, whiskers spread wide. The great ears rose through the last of her light brown waves, and her eyes stayed. Warm, hazel, human, brimming her sister's eyes. As it happens, the family resemblance was always strongest there, and one tear rolled down through the new white fur. Somewhere across the city at that exact hour, a girl was waking up from surgery, and the chair beside her bed was empty. The ledger notes such symmetries. The ledger is built of them. Then the bed held only laundry. A cream blouse, empty. Blue jeans, flat. The little silver star necklace lying loose on the fabric and beside it. On the dark phone, the tiny white rabbit charm she had carried for years without once asking herself why she'd chosen it. Out through the collar of the blouse pushed a small snow-white rabbit, ears back, eyes enormous, scrambling free of the shape of a woman. The charm and the creature lay a hand's width apart. Identical. She had been telling everyone, dear reader, all along, dangling from a phone she never answered. From the floor, the rented room became a world. The bed a cliff, the lamp a distant lighthouse, the TV hissing static like something breathing in the dark. And in the center of the worn carpet sat one very small white rabbit, perfectly still and trembling at once, ears up, heart hammering, watching every shadow in a room she herself had barricaded. Here is the mathematics of her sentence, dear reader, and I did not soften it. A coward's life is spent avoiding fear. I did not take her fear away. I made it the whole world, and I made her small enough to live inside it. At dawn, the chair had fallen. The door stood ajar, and Nina ran. Across the dew-soaked meadow at the city's edge she went. A white streak through the gray-green morning, ears flat, body stretched long, dew scattering behind her like thrown coins, while from the motel doorway far behind, my golden dust rose and drifted up into the brightening sky. And here I must confess something, dear reader, for my pages do not lie. Every other entry I have ever written came, in the end, to rest. The serpent found her mirror, the fox found her hoard, the mare found her stall, the cat found her door. Nina Hart is still running. She was running when I left, as far as I know, and I know very far she is running now. Some accounts close, hers just keeps moving. And so my pages turn to the next name. But look, dear reader, look closely. The ink is behaving strangely tonight. It swirls and will not settle. It sketches half a shape and unsketches it. A curve that might be a wing, a line that might be a horn, a shadow that might be anything at all. Even I, it seems, am being kept in suspense. Entry number 11 has been chosen. The golden question mark at the page's corner tells me the appointment is made, but the creature is not yet written, and I find I cannot read my own hand. So I will ask you instead, what do you see in the ink? Tell me below, subscribe, and be here when the page decides. After all, I would so hate for the next name I write to belong to someone who wasn't watching.